Typhoon Kong-rey approaches Taiwan, expected to hit the southeast coast later this week. Taiwan's premier fights back against claims that Taiwan stole the U.S.'s chip industry. China is a rival that must be kept at bay. That's the message from Republicans and Democrats in the U.S. We're in Los Angeles speaking to local leaders to find out why. Plus,
a Taiwanese company has taken over production of tiny PCs from an American giant. But what does that mean for the consumer AI market?
a warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Leslie Liao. We begin with the latest on Typhoon Kong-rey, which is increasing in speed and strength as it approaches Taiwan. Kong-rey is expected to move northwest closer towards the country over the next few days, making landfall near Taitung on the southeast coast on late Thursday or early Friday. It will be the third typhoon to hit Taiwan this summer. As Rick Lauert now reports, the typhoon is arriving late in the season and comes after two big storms already battered Taiwan this summer.
Residents in Taipei are stocking up as Typhoon Kong-rey inches towards Taiwan, bearing winds of 150 kilometers per hour.
大概会买豆类的，因为可以放比较久。叶菜类的，就是比较会少买一点。
先准备吗？
应该吧。
应该。
总该。
现在就在准备了吗？
对，应该这些比较耐用的。
Local produce will be scarce and expensive if Kong-rey hits as predicted in just a couple of days. The country's farms are still recovering from two typhoons in the last few months. Residents of East Coast cities in the storm's path, like Hualien, have been warned of danger to property and life due to strong winds and torrential rain. The popular tourist destination is struggling to return to normalcy after being struck by a 7.2 magnitude quake in April. Now, it has had to postpone concerts organised to boost visitor numbers.
我收到一些我们的旅宿业者告诉我说，其实有人在做退房的。遇到这样的一个天然的这种台风，我们老实说，我们真的是束手无策。
Many people along this coast had assumed Taiwan's typhoon season was over. It's rare for a storm this size to hit this late in the year.
就搭病要出工咧，風台就過要來啊，就趕緊過尾啊。50-60年就阿媽即寒天時咧做風台啊，我嘛是頭一遍咧拄到。
2024 has already proved to be the most devastating typhoon season in Taiwan for years. At least 14 people were killed, and damages to property and infrastructure were in the hundreds of millions of US dollars. Still quite a distance from Taiwan, Kong-rey's exact path and impact are hard to predict. But many here are hoping that this late arrival will not bring any other surprises. Eason Chen and Rick Lauert for TaiwanPlus.
To learn more about how Taiwan's agricultural sector holds out in the face of typhoons and other natural disasters, Alec McDonald spoke to Professor Mujahid Bayrak from National Taiwan Normal University's Department of Geography.
How have farmers throughout Taiwan's history adapted to sudden typhoons or extreme weather scenarios?
We have to understand that farming and agriculture in its very essence is about adapting. So the thing about challenging environmental challenges or weather challenges or weather variability or climate variability and adapting to that is very much an essence of agriculture, an essence of farming. So we should be a bit careful in saying that in the past, farmers were very much able to adapt, and nowadays farmers see these environmental challenges as something that makes farming untenable in that sense. With that being said, when we look at the past, certain typhoon seasons or certain, climatic seasons were kind of more predictable. So when farmers would be having the harvest season or when they would grow certain crops, they were perhaps more in sync with the way how weather was changing, how the climate was changing, and they could anticipate based on that, using their local and traditional ecological knowledge systems.
Looking forward to the future, Which trends or practices might farmers adapt to as climate change becomes a larger problem and there are additional sudden typhoons or years where there are no typhoons?
So we have to be very critical to say, well, what's the impact of climate change and what is it actually that farmers adapt to? With that being said, the research that we have done clearly shows that farmers experience changing weather conditions. The rainy season usually is, at least what I have learned from my research, is that it's often shorter in time, but more intense. Typhoons, they become more unpredictable. And while climate change might not necessarily cause more typhoons to happen, typhoons are expected to become more intense. So in that sense, we need to figure out, as a society, as a government, is how can we minimize the negative impacts of climate change that we can prevent? And in many ways, I would say that you should cooperate more with farmers because they are definitely able to understand what's going on in terms of changing climatic conditions.
So with cooperating with farmers in mind, what then are some policies or practices that we can implement right now to add additional agricultural resiliency?
Listen more to farmers. Yeah? So see what issues that they are facing. A lot of places we visited, you could see farmers had like land tenure issues. What we also see a lot of indigenous people do more and more is planting more indigenous crops, indigenous varieties of rice and millet. And we should try to encourage that in a sense that it's not only cultural heritage of farmers that we talk about, but a lot of indigenous practices, indigenous crops are also better suited to changing climatic conditions. There's not that I would say that indigenous knowledge will solve climate change, but I think we need to pay more attention to that.
That was National Taiwan Normal University Professor Mujahid Bayrak discussing Taiwan's agricultural resiliency. Taiwan's Army has entered its second day of week-long drills on the West Coast. Over 4,000 troops and 100 tanks, armored vehicles, and artillery are being used in the Chang-tai No. 19 exercise. The 24-hour non-stop drills are meant to train troops in decentralized command, decision-making, and nighttime combat. It will also be the first exercise to incorporate reserve soldiers undergoing mobilization training. Taiwan is one step closer to securing 1,000 attack drones from the U.S. Bloomberg reported that Taiwan's defense ministry had signed a deal with the U.S. government in September and that detailed contracts were in the works with 2 U.S. defense companies. Taiwan has been trying to incorporate drones into its asymmetric warfare strategy against China, which has been stepping up threats to take the country by force. Premier Cho Jung-tai says he disagrees with former U.S. President Donald Trump's repeated claims that Taiwan stole the U.S.'s chip industry.
当然不同意，这是我们自己发展出来一个非常领先世界的产业。
That came during a heated exchange with opposition Kuomintang lawmaker Wang Hongwei. Wang said she is concerned Trump's claims could spread and cause harm to those involved in Taiwan's chip sector. The premier said the government will continue watching the U.S. election, but that he's confident Taiwan-U.S. ties will continue to grow. With just 1 week to go before the U.S. presidential elections, candidates are fighting to win swing voters. But racist comments made by a comedian at a Trump rally are now taking over the discussion. Tiffany Wong has more.
The final stretch. With just 1 week left before voters take to the polls, the U.S. presidential candidates are ramping up their campaigns, trying to grab as many voters in battleground states as possible. Now their campaigns have turned to a key demographic, Latino voters, a large voting bloc with a historically low turnout rate. But now many are torn after comments by a comedian at a Trump rally.
There's a lot going on. Like, I don't know if you guys know this, but there's literally a floating island of garbage in the middle of the ocean right now. Yeah. I think it's called Puerto Rico.
In a major Puerto Rican community in the key swing state of Pennsylvania, where Trump plans to hold a rally, his comments caused confusion among voters.
I can tell that people are not talking a lot about politics on the streets, and but they're not very happy about Donald Trump. That's one thing I can say. The few things that I have heard, that's what has to do with most of the time, the discontent.
The comments also gained the attention of the Archbishop of San Juan de Puerto Rico, who called on Trump to personally apologize. Although Trump has not commented publicly on the matter, his running mate J.D. Vance was quick to pass it off as a joke.
And my own view on this is, look, again, I haven't seen the joke. Maybe it's a stupid racist joke, as you said. Maybe it's not. I haven't seen it. I'm not going to comment on the specifics of the joke. But I think that we have to stop getting so offended at every little thing in the United States of America. I'm so over it.
Democratic candidate Kamala Harris condemned Trump for sowing divides with those comments, but she refrained from directly addressing the issue at her latest rally in Michigan.
And listen, you all have heard me say, I do believe Donald Trump to be an unserious man, but the consequences of him ever being president again are brutally serious. Brutally serious.
Now, with just 7 days left, and with both candidates trying to sweep up any undecided voters, they'll have to choose their words carefully as people make their final choice. Klein Wang and Tiffany Wong for TaiwanPlus.
What to do about China? Both of the major U.S. parties say its rival in Asia needs to be reined in. One of the few things they seem to agree on as the election approaches. I went to Southern California to see how politicians from both sides of the aisle are viewing the China factor.
Republicans and Democrats in the U.S. are divided on nearly every issue. From abortion to gun control to economic policy, the two sides rarely see eye to eye. And in the lead up to the 2024 U.S. presidential election, hotly contested between Republican candidate Donald Trump and Democrat Kamala Harris, these differences have been amplified. But there is one area where both parties are starting to share some common ground: the United States rivalry with China. Both sides seem to agree that China poses significant challenges to not just the U.S., but also the current world order.
Believe it or not, I'm on 5 different committees, everything related to China.
Korean-American Michelle Steele is the U.S. representative for California's 45th Congressional District in Orange County. She's a Republican and a self-professed China hawk. Steele says China poses several threats to the U.S. from global trade.
I'm on actually Ways and Means Committee. We have trade issues. They never really play fair game.
To soft power and espionage.
They are spreading propaganda to our universities and pouring money in. They're stealing our intellectual properties from universities.
There are similar sentiments about China across the political aisle. Taiwanese American Jay Chen also lives in Southern California. He's a naval reservist, co-chair of Taiwanese Americans for Harris, a group supporting the Democratic candidate's campaign, and he ran against Michelle Steele in 2022. And though Chen differs from Steele on nearly every issue, they do agree that China's business practices are a serious challenge for the U.S.
We know that China does not compete fairly against our companies and has expelled a lot of our companies, made it difficult for U.S. companies to operate there, meanwhile engaging in economic espionage.
But with his naval experience, Chen also says that China poses major maritime challenges. Beijing has been asserting its claims to virtually the entire South China Sea, something that's caused clashes with its Southeast Asian neighbors, including close U.S. ally, the Philippines.
So much trade flows through the South China Sea, and we've seen China take really aggressive actions, such as building artificial islands on reefs, and have taken provocative actions against some of our allies.
China also claims Taiwan as part of its territory, something the Taiwanese government denies. And because Taiwan insists on its own sovereignty, Beijing regularly threatens to take the country by force.
我们愿以最大诚意，尽最大努力争取和平统一的前景，但绝不承诺放弃使用武力。
China's military recently simulated a blockade around Taiwan, calling attention to a very real threat for Taipei. For decades, the U.S. has supported Taiwan by providing it with the weapons it needs to defend itself. But that support has been expanding. Another way both sides of the aisle are getting tough on China. Last year, Steele and a Democratic colleague introduced a piece of legislation that would authorize the U.S. president to lend or lease weapons to Taiwan. That bill would cut the red tape for getting American munitions in the hands of Taiwanese soldiers.
We always speak up for Taiwan, and we are standing, up to China, make sure that China is not gonna attack Taiwan, because Taiwan is a sovereign country.
Meanwhile, Jay Chen points out that U.S. President Joe Biden has gone even further than past leaders in expressing support for Taipei.
President Biden even said if Taiwan were to be attacked, that the U.S. would support Taiwan militarily, and that broke a lot of precedent.
But though Democrats and Republicans agree that more needs to be done about China, they differ on how to approach relations with China and on who is best fit for the job. Steele says Republicans are tough and can get the job done.
We understand how that China is spreading all over the world, and they're the biggest threats.
But Chen says that ties with China require more finesse so that the U.S. does not end up harming its own Chinese-American population.
We understand that China is an adversary, but we are not trying to scapegoat anyone who's of Chinese descent. And as someone who is Taiwanese-American, I think that is really, really important.
As Election Day draws nearer, one thing seems certain. The U.S. will be looking to toughen up on China, no matter who is voted in as the country's next president. Devin Tsai, Jeremy Olivier, and Leslie Liao in California for TaiwanPlus.
We'll be bringing you more exclusive coverage of issues key to the U.S. election all this week. Reuters has reported that China asked the U.S. to change the wording it uses to describe its position on Taiwan's independence. The U.S. government currently says it does not support independence for Taiwan. But during a meeting last year, Chinese President Xi Jinping reportedly asked U.S. President Joe Biden to use language actively opposing it. Official sources say the Biden administration rejected the request. China has increased diplomatic, economic, and military pressure on Taiwan in recent years. Coming up after the break, South Korea takes action to curb over-tourism at a popular Seoul neighborhood.
A pivotal election that will impact Taiwan and the world. Will it be President Harris or President Trump?
People, we are moving forward.
Make America great again.
I'm in the United States in the final stretch.
TaiwanPlus has you covered with exclusive reports from California to Texas and Washington to Florida. We'll be there on election night as America decides. Only on TaiwanPlus.
Welcome back. You're watching TaiwanPlus News. Taiwanese computer maker Asus has debuted its new line of mini PCs with a focus on artificial intelligence 1 year after taking over the product line from U.S. chipmaker Intel. As Chris Gorin reports, these small computers point to big changes in the tech industry.
Taiwanese computer maker Asus has just debuted its newest line of mini PCs known as NUC or NUCs, which stands for the next unit of computing. But they didn't always make them. Until last year, they were produced by U.S. company Intel, known primarily for its chip-making business. But now, these mini PCs have become a growth engine for their Taiwanese partner.
We believe the mini PC form factor will be the major, I would say, the main form factors in the future IoT space and also in the commercial space. I think it gives us some big opportunity to grow. The first thing is because of the AI.
And like much of the modern tech economy, for computer makers, AI is big business. This formerly American-made product line is part of a trend to try and bring AI functionality to everyday devices. And it's a trend that's only expected to grow. In fact, it's expected that within 4 years, 70% of all new PCs will have AI functionality right on the device, with less need for cloud-based AI services. And industry insiders say that can be important when protecting your data is key.
You have healthcare applications, you have industrial applications for security, surveillance, monitoring, and most of these applications, they are very data sensitive. You would rather not send data to the cloud. Having an advanced AI capable hardware sitting right next to you, which is capable of doing all the AI processing, is going to be a game changer.
Asus's success with the NUC line stands in contrast to its former producer, Intel. The Arizona-based company has struggled in the past several years to keep pace with its competitors, and investors have noticed. Intel's stock has fallen by more than 60% in the last year, reaching its lowest price in a decade, at one point dropping 26% in a single day. Licensing its NUC product line is just one of several drastic moves Intel has made to shore up its profitability and focus more directly on designing and making chips, as it seeks to compete with rivals like TSMC and AMD. It's cutting its staff and has split its chip-making foundry business into a separate subsidiary. It's even been the target of buyout offers from other hardware companies and private equity firms. The focus on a chips-first strategy may represent U.S. national priorities as well.
We all understand that Taiwan is a geopolitical strategic partner of US. So companies like Intel, they are okay with having Taiwanese companies acquire their businesses, as long as these businesses do not interfere with their capabilities of defense and space applications.
With the premiere of this new series, these mini AI PCs show how big changes in the worlds of technology and geopolitics can all fit inside a very small package. Chris Ma and Chris Gorin for TaiwanPlus.
Apple has been banned from selling the iPhone 16 in Indonesia after the government said it failed to meet local investment requirements. Apple was required to source 40% of its components locally and to make a certain investment in the country. It had previously committed to investing just over $107 million, but only invested around $95 million. As a result, Indonesia's government hasn't certified Apple to sell the iPhone 16 in the country. North Korea has sent around 10,000 troops to Russia to fight in the Russia-Ukraine war, according to the U.S. Defense Department. The Pentagon says the North Korean troops are expected to head to battlefields in Ukraine in the next several weeks. Pyongyang also sent its foreign minister to visit Russia this week, but did not reveal the purpose of the visit. The moves have worried both Western and South Korean leaders.
러시아와 북한의 불법 군사 야합은 국제사회에 대한 중요한 안보 위협이면서 우리 안보에 위해를 가할 수 있는 엄중한 사안입니다.
Neither Pyongyang nor Moscow has confirmed that North Korea has sent troops to Russia, but both say their military cooperation does not violate international law. South Korea's government is taking action to curb over-tourism at a popular tourist spot in Seoul. The plan to introduce a visitor's curfew is aimed at protecting the quality of life for residents. Wesley Lewis reports.
A constant stream of foot traffic fills the narrow, winding roads and alleyways of the Bukchon Hanok village in Seoul. In recent years, the area known for its traditional Korean houses has seen an influx of tourists, creating stress for its residents. Now the government has proposed a trial curfew to begin in November. Good news for tired locals. But business owners in the area who rely on the tourists are worried.
누가 한국에 오고 싶겠어요. 또 한국에 대한 감정이 나쁘면 한국 물품도 안 좋아하거든요.
The curfew will block tourists from entering certain parts of the village between 5 p.m. and 10 a.m., with violators facing fines of up to around $70. Visitor numbers here have ballooned over the past decade. Around 6 million people visited Bukchon last year, overwhelming the small village of around 6,000 residents. Locals say loud noises, littering, and privacy violations have become a daily annoyance.
많은 사람들이 와서 그 앞에 뭐 문고리를 잡고 뭐 대문을 밀고 들어오려고 한다거나 뭐 창 아래에서 막 이렇게 여러 가지 소음을 일으키면서 뭐 사진을 찍거나 여러 가지 일을 하거나 이제 이런 거를 겪게 되니까 이제 그게 좀 힘든 거죠.
The mayor of Seoul's Jongno district, where the village is located, says the curfew policy is not set in stone, and that his office will do what it can to meet the needs of the community.
관광객들이 어느 정도 와도 이게 균형을 잡으면서 이제 정주권자들이 크게 불편이 없으시면 되는 거니까 주민들이라 그러니까 이제 실행을 해 나가면서 점점 좀 그 보완할 건 보완해 나가고 뭐 그러면서 좀 이제 지켜보면서 처음 시작하는 거니만큼.
Signs in multiple languages have been set up around the village, imploring tourists to be more mindful. Tourists are divided over the curfew and fines. Some disagree that they should be fined for simply walking down a public road, while others agree with the idea behind the policy.
Yeah, totally agree with that, where if tourists are being rude and disrespectful to the residents living here, that shouldn't be allowed. And yeah, there should be protections in place so their peace and sanity is preserved.
There are also unanswered questions about how to enforce the rules and some exceptions. For example, tourists staying overnight in the village are exempt from the curfew, but there's no question that tired residents will have to continue enduring throngs of tourists, if only during the daylight hours. Andy Xue and Wesley Lewis for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching TaiwanPlus News. Finally, today we take you to the No Woman's Land exhibition in Paris, which offers a glimpse into the private lives of women in Afghanistan. I'm Leslie Liao. Take care. See you next time.